This is a story about the woman who lives upstairs. If you were to ask me what she looks like, what was her soul or her spirit, I'd say she looks like this. Or maybe like this. The woman who lives upstairs likes to vacuum on Saturday mornings, sometimes before 8. But because she lives upstairs, the people in the apartment below hers can hear her vacuuming on Saturday morning before 8. There is no carpeting, but the woman who lives upstairs lives with 5 cats, so she vacuums. The woman who lives upstairs lives as if she's all by herself. She doesn't act as if she lives in a building with other people who can hear her vacuuming on Saturday mornings before 8. The woman who lives upstairs is always right in her own mind. That's why she puts signs up everywhere to try and curb or correct how everyone else is living. The woman who lives upstairs is also the self-appointed gardener in the small communal building that she shares with other people, so that no one else has a chance to enjoy gardening. The woman who lives upstairs is friendly with strangers, waving at passers-by, but not with the people who live in the communal building. The woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs likes a quiet life, but it doesn't fit the habits of the woman who lives upstairs, who likes to live as if she's the only one inhabiting the communal building, who seems to only have a social life with her cats, with whom she speaks in strange voices, as people do sometimes who live with cats. The woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs has endured the noise of the vacuuming, of the cats galloping back and forth, of the woman who lives upstairs dragging furniture across the floor, of her constantly dropping things as if to test gravity, whether it would defy her careless grip this one time. One time, the woman who lives in the apartment below the woman upstairs wrote a letter to her, asking her to be mindful of the noise. The woman who lives upstairs did not reply. The woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs tried to find other solutions, like sticking styrofoam to the ceiling with hot glue, which would be the floor of the woman who lives upstairs. But it didn't work. The sticky tiles fell off. The woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs tried lighting a candle while adding a prayer for peace. But she could still hear the woman who lives upstairs walking around in hard-soled shoes. That didn't work. The woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs talked to friends about the problem of the noise and the selfishness of the woman who lives upstairs. And one friend said, "Pray for her. Pray for her happiness. And if she's happy, maybe she won't stomp around." So the woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs prayed for the woman upstairs, prayed for her happiness, but she still stomped around and, moreover, slammed doors, and her vacuum cleaner was evermore like a thunder on Saturday morning as she rolled it back and forth over her floor, which was the ceiling of the woman who lived in the apartment below hers. Eventually, the woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs went to see her doctor, who said, "You have to take care of your blood pressure. What is wrong?" And she said, "It's not peaceful where I live. There's a lot of vacuuming and stomping and cats galloping above my head." Then she sighed. As it turns out, the woman who lived upstairs ended up not feeling well for about 3 weeks. And she was quiet. As it also turns out, the woman who lived downstairs was also not feeling well for about 3 weeks. But she had to keep working, so she worked from home. It's the modern time, so she worked on her computer, did her work, and sent it in, all while trying to rest and recover. While she was busy working, she was so focused on doing her work, she realized that she could only pay attention to her work and not the noise coming from the activities of the woman who lived upstairs, who, although she was not well, still managed to vacuum. The woman who lived below the woman who lived upstairs saw that she could not be well served by dividing her attention. So, as long as she continued to focus on her work and stay fully engaged in what she was doing, she was able to ignore the busyness of the woman who lived upstairs. And because of this long, drawn-out experience, the woman who lived in the apartment below the woman who lived upstairs learned a lesson. If you stay focused where you find your benefit, where you find what matters to you, then all other distractions become secondary or else unimportant. And so it is that, despite a difficult situation, the woman who lived below the woman who lived upstairs was able to learn something from it in the long run. The woman who lives upstairs is still noisy. She's still selfish. She's still antisocial. Her cats are still noisy. But the woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs finally understood that she had to learn to focus on her own affairs, on the things that truly matter in her day, and not be distracted by other people's seeming unpleasantness, about which she had no control anyway. Now, they didn't all live happily ever after, but the blood pressure of the woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs did go down. And whenever she found herself being caught up in the unpleasantness of the woman who lives upstairs, she could see that she was losing her focus and letting it drift into wasted expressions of time and energy. And one day, at the end of a long, strange summer, when everyone in the world was wearing masks on their faces, when the noises from the woman who lived upstairs, her galloping cats, her early morning vacuuming, her constant dropping things, her droning air purifier, because she had cats, when none of that held as much attention for the rest of the people in that communal building, and especially the woman who lives in the apartment below the woman who lives upstairs. A moving van pulled up to the parking space at the front of the communal building, and one by one, as her furniture was carried out and carefully placed in the van, and her cats in their 5 individual crates were carried out, she was gone. And then it was quiet. So